Hey guys, I'm Haley. Welcome to Bible in the Backyard. This is my backyard. We are still in the book of Judges. We are just going through the book of Judges and looking at all the different judges that Israel had. We just finished up with chapter 4 and chapter 5, and that is Deborah and Barak. Now we're moving on into Gideon. So let's continue. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Midian 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them dens, which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. And so it was, when Israel had sworn, that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up against them. And they encamped against them, and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor ass. So they try to go up to the mountains, where there's things up there where the Midianites and the Amalekites can't touch them, and then those tribes followed Israel up the mountain. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude. For they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. And it came to pass, when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord because of the Midianites, that the Lord sent a prophet, this is verse 8, unto the children of Israel, which said unto them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt, and I brought you forth out of the house of bondage. That backs it up all the way up to Moses. And I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all that oppressed you, and I drave them out from before you, and I gave you their land. And I said unto you, I am the Lord your God. Fear not the God of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But ye have not obeyed my voice. In verse 11. And there came an angel of the Lord, and sat under an oak, which was in Ophrah, that pertained unto Joash the Abiezrite. And his son Gideon threshed wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him, and said unto him, The Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if the Lord be with us, then why is all this befallen us? Where will be all his miracles which our fathers had told us, saying, Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt, but now the Lord hath forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites? Basically, Gideon's asking is, where did all the miracles go? What happened to us that we've lost all these miracles? I don't get it, and I don't understand. In verse 14. And the Lord looked upon him and said, Go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent thee? Verse 15. And he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. I'm either the youngest, I am the one that is the weakest. I don't always put forth the meat. I don't work in the fields. I don't do this. I don't do that. I'm the least in my father's house. You know what God says? Verse 16. And the Lord said unto him, Surely I will be with thee, and thou shalt smite the Midianites as one man. And he said unto him, and Gideon says unto him, If now I had found grace in thy sight, then show me a sign that thou talkest with me. Depart not hence, I pray thee, until I come unto thee, and bring forth my present, and set it before thee. And he said, I will tarry until thou come again. And Gideon went in and made ready a kid and unleavened cakes and an ephah of flour. The flesh he put in a basket, and he put the broth in a pot, and brought it out unto him under the yoke, and presented it. And the angel of God said unto him, Take the flesh and the unleavened cake, and lay them upon this rock, and pour out the broth. And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord put forth the end of his staff that was in his hands, and touched the flesh of the unleavened cake. And there rose up a fire out of the rock, and consumed the flesh and the unleavened cakes. And then the angel of the Lord departed out of his sight. Verse 22. And when Gideon perceived that it was an angel of the Lord, Gideon said, Alas, O Lord God, for before I have seen an angel of the Lord face to face. And the Lord said unto him, Peace be unto thee, fear not, thou shalt not die. So this fear of Gideon, this fear that Gideon has that he saw an angel of the Lord, is real. No man alive has seen God and lived. And so Gideon was right to be fearful. He was like, okay, whoa. He finally realized who he was talking to when the angel departed. But the assurance from the Lord is peace-giving as well as instructive. Because from this, the Lord says, Thou shalt not die. And then the Lord gives Gideon instructions on what to do next. So let's see. This is really, really, really important. In verse 24, Then Gideon built an altar there unto the Lord, and called it Jehovah Shalom. Unto this day it is yet an Ophrah of the Abiezrites. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, Take thy father's young bullock, even the second bullock of 7 years old, and throw down the altar of Baal that thy father hath, and cut down the grove that is by it. And build an altar unto the Lord thy God upon the top of this rock. In the ordered place, take the second bullock, and offer a sacrifice with the wood of the grove which thou hast cut down. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants, so 10 men of his father's house, and did as the Lord said unto him. And it was so, because he feared his father's household and the men of the city, that he could not do it by day, and that he did it by night. What Gideon is doing is throwing down an idol that has no more meaning to life and to the Israelites than this towel does. He was throwing down that idol, and he cut down the grove that they built beside it. Gave an offering, and he did so. So in verse 28, when the men woke up in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it, and the second bullock was offered upon the altar that was built. And they said one to another, Who hath done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon the son of Joash had done this thing. Then the men of the city said unto Joash, Bring out thy son, that he may die, because he hath cast down the altar of Baal, and because he hath cast down the grove that was by it. And Joash, Gideon's father, asked this question to them, Will ye plead for Baal? Will ye save him? Will you save the idol that was there that's a statue? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death while it is yet morning. If he be a god, let him plead for himself. So basically, if Baal is real, let him come back to life and let him plead himself. Because one hath cast down his altar. Therefore on that day he called him Jerubbaal, saying, Let Baal plead against him, because he hath thrown down his altar. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the children of the east were gathered together and went over and pitched in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and Abiezer was gathered after him. And he sent messengers throughout all of Manasseh, who was also gathered after him. He sent messengers unto Asher, and unto Zebulun, and unto Naphtali, and they came up to meet them. And Gideon said unto God, If thou wilt save Israel by mine hand, as thou hast said, behold, I will put a fleece of wool, this is not wool, this is a towel, so I'm just going to use this, in the floor, and there be dew on the fleece only, and it will be dry upon the earth beside it. Then I will know that thou wilt save Israel by mine hand, and thou hast said. So the dew, what Gideon's asking is, put the dew on this only. Don't let it be on anything else around. Don't let it be on the grass. Whatever's around this, this can only be wet. Verse 38, and it was so, for he rose up early on the morrow, the next morning, and thrust the fleece together, and wringed the dew out of the fleece, and a bowl full of water came out. And Gideon said unto God, because he's asking for God to give him a sign, a specific sign, not just if you do this, make this old cell phone ring because this is or a stick to fall, or lights to blink, or because haven't we done that in our lives as kids, as middle schoolers, as high schoolers, even in college, even today as an adult? We still do this. It's give me a sign that I know that I should do this and that your word is what it needs to be. He's telling you what to do. If you give me this sign, then I'll do your request and I'll know what you're asking is real. But Gideon just wanted to make sure. He believed on the first sign, but he's like, okay, God, let not thine anger be hot against me. He's like, please don't get mad at me. I'm going to ask you to do something else. I will speak but this once. Let me prove, I pray thee, but only this once with a fleece. Now let this be dry. So he basically took the same fleece, dry only upon the fleece, and upon all the ground let there be dew. So he basically laid this out. And as we know, anything that is left out overnight, it will be wet in the morning because of the dew that's on the ground. It'll be wet alongside of it. So what happened was God did that in verse 40. And God did so that night, for it was dry upon the fleece only, and there was dew all on the ground. So this thing that Gideon had laid down in the grass, that was gonna be wet because we all know science, right? And we've all tried this once or twice, 17,000 times. We wake up in the morning and there's dew on the ground. We wake up in the morning and our cars might be wet. Or we wake up in the morning and we walk in the grass and our shoes get wet. This was dry. This was completely dry. So here's where numbers come into play. So we did the towel test, okay? Gideon's towel test. We talked about that. Now I'm going to continue into chapter 7. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod. So the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them, by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give to the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, mine own hand has saved me. This is plain as day. This is plain as day because God didn't want any person to think that Gideon or themselves saved Israel. I'm going to put this in today's terms, or what I follow and listen to, that Rich Froning won the CrossFit Games. Like, yeah, he puts in the work. He did this, that, and the other, but Rich Froning's not gonna come out and say, oh, I did this. He's not gonna do that. But Israel and us people as people, we tend to do that ourselves. We tend to give glory to ourselves, saying, oh, I'm the one that did that. Oh, I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. When really, it's not us. It's God. And so God's saying plain as day, he doesn't want Israel to think that Israel saved themselves. Their strength did not save them. Their numbers did not save them. Nothing saved them besides God himself. So in verse 3, he says, now therefore go, proclaimed in the ears of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from the Mount Gilead. And there returned the people 22,000, and there remained 10,000. You started with 32,000 people. 32,000. It's pretty good odds for a war or a fight for an army, right? Not in God's book. So there remained 10,000. Verse 4. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. There's too many. And you're like, I just left. I only have 10,000 left. 22,000 just left me. And there's still too many people? Okay. Let's see what happens. Bring them down into the water. In verse 4 it says, and I will try them for thee there, and it shall be that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee, and the same will go with thee, and whomever I say unto you, this shall not go with thee, the same shall not go. So he brought the people down unto the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, every one that lappeth the water with his tongue, as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, every one that boweth upon his knees to drink. The number of them that laughed, putting their hands to their mouth, there were 300 men. But all the rest of the people that bowed down upon their knees to drink water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, by 300 men that lapped I will save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand. And let all the other people go, unto every man unto his place. So the people took the victuals in their hands and their trumpets, and he set all the rest in Israel, every man into his tent, and retained those 300 men, and the host of the Midian were beneath him in the valley. Okay, I'm going to slide this way, because I have a wheelbarrow right here. And I don't really feel like getting down on my hands and knees to show you guys this, but I'm going to show you guys this. So, what the Lord was talking about, what Gideon was talking about, and the Lord and how they did this, basically those men who were ready. This has nasty water and I'm not going to touch it or anything. Basically, what he was talking about, laughed with their tongues, was basically the men that weren't looking up. So they clearly and plainly as day were bending over like this into the river. They couldn't see what was around them. The ones that were bent on their knee and using their hands, being able to look around, that is what God wanted. He wanted those who were ready. He wanted those who were ready to get up at a moment's notice and fight if need be. That is ready. Only those that were ready, on their knees, looking up while drinking water, he only took those. Now, I'm not a military strategist. I've never fought in the army. I know nothing about them. I support our military. I love our military. However, you had 300 men versus 32,000 men. What would you think would win? Like, like, in normal people terms, like in today's time, in reality, with God, there's nothing that is impossible, and I understand that, and I know this, and this is what God is proving to Gideon and his army and the children of Israel. But if you have 32,000 men versus 300 men, most likely the 32,000 men are going to win. Not in this case. Verse 9. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said unto him, Arise, get thee down to the host, for I have delivered it into thine hands. But if thou fear to go down with Purah, thy servant, go down to the host. And thou shalt hear what they say, and afterwards shall thine hands be strengthened, and go down into the host. When he went down with Purah his servant, outside of the armed men that were in the host. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude. And their camels were without number, as the sand by the seaside for multitude. We've all been to the beach. We've all seen pictures of the beach. As the sand by the sea, that's how massive they were. Versus 300 men. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of the Midians, and came unto a tent, and smote it, that fell and overturned it, and the tent lay along. And his fellow answered and said, This is nothing else save the sword of Gideon and the son of Joash, a man of Israel. For into his hand God had delivered Midian and all the host. And it was so, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped, and returned to the host of Israel, and said, Arise, for the Lord hath delivered you into the hand of the host Midian. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, so 100 per each. And he put a trumpet in every man's hand, with empty pitchers and lamps within the pitchers. And he said unto them, Look on me, and do likewise. And behold, when I come into the outside of the camp, it shall be that, as I do, so shall ye do. When I blow with the trumpet, and I, and all that are with me, then blow ye the trumpets, also on every side of the camp, and say, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men that were with them came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch. So in the middle part of the night. So the middle watch would be maybe midnight 3. Middle watch, and they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were in their hands. You know, if you're going to go to war, you normally would have a sword and a shield and like a helmet, armor. No. These men had pitchers on top of lamps and a trumpet. This is just how amazing God is. Just plain as day how amazing God is. So Gideon and the 300 men that were with him came into the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, but they had newly set the watch. And they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were in their hands. And the 3 companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers, and held up the lamps in their left hands, and the trumpets in their right hands, to blow withal. And they cried, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon!" And they stood every man in his place, round about the camp, and the host ran and cried and fled. And 300 blew the trumpets, and the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the hosts. And the hosts fled to Bethshittah and Zereth, and to the border of Abilam Loha, unto Tabith. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali and out of Asher and out of the Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all of Mount Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites, and take before you the waters unto Bethbara and Jordan." Then all these men of Ephraim gathered themselves together, and took the waters into Bethbara and Jordan. And they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock of Oreb. And Zeb they slew at the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb into Gideon on the other side of Jordan. I want to go back to verse 21 and verse 22. Gideon's men, that were 300 men, they didn't move. They stood their line. They did nothing other than break the pitchers, which then, basically, if you've been outside or you've been in the swimming pool, we've all done this. And you get out and you come back inside. Or if your eyes your eyes at night, this is a better example. Your eyes at night, if someone flips on the light and you open your eyes, you're going to be blinded, right? So these men that were in this host camp, the Amalekites and the Midianites, their eyes were ready. They were adjusted. They were seeing what was in the dark. They weren't necessarily seeing light. So when these pitchers broke, they were all kind of blinded, and everybody in the camp was blinded. People that were sleeping were blinded. But the men of Gideon didn't move. They stood, they held their line, they blew the trumpets because, if you're sleeping and something goes off at night and it's loud, it's scary. It's very, very, very scary. And then the many people in the camp in verse 22, they turned and then they attacked each other, then scattered. The stronghold that the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east thought they had no longer stood. And so that's how Gideon and 300 men, and that's how the Lord works, is that he takes 300 men that have pitchers and lamps and trumpets, and that's how they defeat all these people that were as the sand by the sea. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, night, wherever you're at. That is the story of Gideon. We'll go into chapter 8 and finish off the book of Judges soon. Hope you guys have a blessed day, a blessed evening, a blessed night. We will talk with you next week. See ya. Bye.